All right, well, hello again. I know we can dispense with introductions because we all met just a little bit ago. So we're going to talk about how we get the most out of our people in this session. And obviously we could go down a rabbit hole with all the different ways we can get through to our people. We're going to talk today about some cultural type things. How do we get people to understand where they're at in your company, how what they do makes a difference in your results, and how to reward them when they drive those results. We obviously don't have time in 1 hour to talk about every little thing that can touch our people, so we're going to focus on some compensation type things, and we're going to focus on some communication type things today. Okay? So there's a couple things that I want to address here. We're going to look at key behaviors tonight, the things that people really need to be focused on in order to drive business results. We're going to look at how we create what's called a line of sight in our people, so they can connect the dots of what they're doing to what needs to happen. We're going to look at what this light of sight is all about, okay, why it's so critical that we make sure we develop it in our people. And then finally, we're going to look at some incentives, financial and otherwise. How can we, when people are doing what we need them to do, how do we take care of them for that? Okay? So why is it important? I'm going to throw some stats out. I'm a bit of a stats geek. So Wharton did a study a couple years ago of executives, and they said, if you aren't hitting your goals, and all these executives said, yeah, we're not hitting the goals we want. Why? And there was a resounding amount that said, it's a lack of ownership amongst employees. Like, we've got these goals, we've got where we want to go, but our people just aren't grabbing onto it. They're not picking up what we're putting down, right? And if you think about it, it makes complete sense. A company can't be successful if its people don't buy into where the company's headed, the vision, why it's the vision, what the mission is, what the goals are, and how we get there. If they don't buy into it, there's no way you can hit those. So to me, that wasn't a terrible surprise, okay? But other studies then said that they believe that one of the key drivers of engagement is an employee's ability to see a connection from what they're doing every day and how that connects to the service of the customer, the manufacturing of the widget, the ability for them to impact a company's goals. Like that's the magic sauce. And that's what we're here to talk about today. How do we create that line of sight in our people so they can do that for us? And then finally, this idea of line of sight, if you can imagine that, if you can see how you can impact not only your own destiny, but your organization's goals, your engagement goes up because you know what you're doing really matters. And if you can connect the dots and you know that what you're doing matters, you are probably not only more engaged, but you're more productive. So it's absolutely critical. Now, in case we have some publicly held companies, there's some good news for you guys too. Watson Wyatt found that publicly traded companies that have good line of sight in their people get 26% better returns for their shareholders. Pretty huge, right? And again, it's just because people are better focused on where the company's going and their ability to get them there. So there's a lot of business case to be made for why we need to work on this, all right? So here's what I want to think about today. I want you to focus on this definition, that all line of sight is my perception of the degree to which I can impact results. Now, I was talking about this topic a little while back, and I said, I want you to think about an position in your company that does not have an impact on your results. Does anyone have a position like that? Any of your institutions? A position that clearly doesn't impact where your bank is headed. Anyone think of one? Good. Because if you raised your hand and said yes, like this one person did in this previous session, what did I tell them to do with that position? Get rid of it. You don't need it, right? And someone said to me, well, Ed, we've got data processors. I mean, they don't really help us hit our goals. I said, well, what do your data processors do? She said, well, we're a medical company, and of course they're entering the medical data and client information and patient stuff, and she's going on and on. I said, okay, so what happens if they screw up? Oh, well, medication could be wrong, or this could happen. I'm like, okay, so how can you sit here and say that doesn't impact where you're headed? It's clearly related to your ability to serve your patients. And then someone else said, well, what about janitors? I mean, come on. Do they really impact our results? What, what do you think about that statement?
Well, I mean, yeah, especially right now. The janitor's one of the most important people.
Keeping your place clean right now. No offense if any of you are the top dog in your bank, right? But if the top dog is gone for the day, does anyone really notice? They could go to the golf course, they can do whatever. And if they've got a well-oiled machine, everything runs fine, and maybe it even runs better when they're gone, right? But let the janitor be gone for the day and let a toilet back up. Let it be, well, guys don't have to worry about snow down here, but up home, snowy day, right? And tracking all the crud into the lobbies and trash bins overflowing. I mean, what message does that send to our customers, right? So we can't think about a person's degree of influence over our organization as being anything related to position within the organization. Because if you have one that you're thinking about right now, you're like, I'm not really sure, take a look at it because you may be able to save some money and get rid of that position. All right? So what we're going to look at today is there's two kinds of line of sight that we have to think about. The first is a short-term line of sight. Now, employees love short-term. Think about it this way. If I ran a lawn mowing business and I sent, and all of you were my mowers, and I sent you all out today, and I said, okay, we've got 30 lawns to get mowed today. Would we know at the end of the day whether we hit our goal? Yeah, right? We do. Oh, yeah, checked off my 5, done. We know at the end of the day. That's short-term line of sight. Employees love it. Why doesn't management love it so much? So up home, I have a very good friend who runs a landscaping business. He can't mow 30 lawns a day, can he? Why not? You're shaking your head no. Why not? Why can't he mow 30 lawns a day?
Not enough time in the day, I would think.
Well, he's got a crew. He's got a crew, right?
You can't do it year-round.
Can't do it year-round up home, right? Our grass is going to stop growing about the end of October. So 5-6 months out of the year, he can't mow grass. So there's that. Now, he can plow snow. But what else gets in the way of mowing 30 lawns a day? Even during growing season? Rain, right? So if it's just a sprinkle, yeah, they can mow in that. We've been having some torrentials up home. Can't mow in torrential rains, right? So he loses those days. So from a short-term line of sight, if that's all we focused on was putting one foot in front of the other, what would happen? Sooner or later, we're going to bang into something, right? Because all we're worried about is that one foot in front of the other. So in management, we like the long-term line of sight. We want to go through some business cycles. So for my buddy, he wants to see, okay, during growing season, how many lawns do I need to do on average on a weekly basis through growing season to know that I'm going to be good at the end of those 6 months? And then all he can do is hope that Mother Nature cooperates with some snow, okay? Because again, he can't plan on plowing certain amounts of parking lots because there's no snow, there's no plowing, right? But that's where long-term line of sight comes in. So what we've got to be able to do is blend our trust of the cyclical nature of our business with employees' love of those short-term goals, knowing that if we hit the short-term goals and we take into account the cyclical nature of our business, that we can still hit our goals. And so that's where our magic sauce is going to be today, okay? Let's take a look at this chart. So when we get down here with this shorter-term line of sight, it works really well at the individual level. So if I want to sit down with you and talk to you about your individual goals, things that I need you to make sure that you're doing every day, again, at the end of the day, oh, I processed all of these forms, I took care of these processes, you know you go home at the end of the day and things are well, okay? But as I continue up the organizational chart, okay, and even in the team-based area, employees still control that, right? So think about your teller group. They can control 100% whether or not your customers get serviced the way that you want them serviced. It's still fully under their control, okay? But what happens when I get up to departmental level or the organization as a whole? They start to lose some of that ability, right? Can a teller be held fully responsible for the amount of deposits being managed in a certain branch? No, can't, right? But I can start to hold a branch manager and a whole organization to that based on how that branch manager sells or his or her team sells and so on. And of course, the tellers have a role to play in how they provide customer service and things, right? But that's where we start to get in the better accuracy of things. And so what we have to do is, we're going to see that we're going to reward people down here based on their individual contributions, provided that those individual contributions contribute to the overall goals that we want. And that's how we bridge this gap between what employees need to hear and see and feel and what management knows it needs to be able to run the business effectively. Okay? And that's where we're going to head today. So here are a couple more stats. I don't think anything are going to surprise you. But take a look at this. The shorter your line of sight and the lower level you are on the pecking order, if you will, the more control you have over your personal destiny. Right? The more you are likely to be a person who, punches the clock at 8 and punches the clock again at 5 and that's it. Versus the higher up the food chain you have, the more faith we start to have in knowing what buttons we need to push to make certain things happen. So in this morning's session, when the lady who was in the marketing function said, oh yeah, well in marketing we influence this, this, and this, right? It makes complete sense. Marketing can only lay the groundwork, but everyone else has to execute that. But we know, based on historical data in our organizations, what buttons we can push. And so that's, again, we have to educate our employees on that, and we're going to see how to do that here in a little bit. Okay? So, line of sight, much higher in employees that have been with the company a long time. Shouldn't be a surprise, right? They've been there, done that, seen it, know how the company works. Maybe they've even had a couple of different positions within the organization, so they've seen things from different angles. Okay? The lower level employees, and this is what I want you to think about. Your tellers are basically your entry level folks, right? And so, and yet, they have the most impact on whether your customers are happy in most cases. Except for if I go to you for a loan and you turn me down. But I mean, for the most part, right? If I go in and have a bad experience with a teller, I've walked out thinking I've had a bad experience with your bank. And how many of you use tellers that are maybe part-time or even seasonal based on any kind of fluctuations? A bunch of you, right? So now you've got a part-time employee. So you think about perception of who's really making the difference. I was going to share a story, but I'm going to wait because I don't want to give away one of my answers. Okay? And so finally, it shouldn't be a surprise that if you have a culture where people bounce around a lot in different positions, on one hand, that can be pretty cool for kind of rounding them out. But most studies show it does not help the employee understand how your business ticks. Because oftentimes we move them too quickly for them to really understand how all the dots connect. So if you have one of those environments where you're moving people around in order to, quote, round them out, it's not bad. Just make sure you're doing it intentionally and make sure that they understand and are held accountable along the way to hitting goals so they're truly not just learning the job, but learning what buttons to push in that role for your organization. That's what's most important, okay? Those part-time people, and even if you're using temps, they almost have no line of sight. They're the forgotten people in our organization, and it's a shame, really, because again, a lot of those are your frontline people. When we think about it in retail, right? You go to a store, you're probably being helped by a part-time person. And yet they're impacting your store experience and whether or not maybe you even go shopping at that store again. Or you're calling a customer service line and it's someone who's never going to see you in person. It's hard to drive line of sight in these folks. But we're going to see today why we need to do it and obviously how we need to do it. All right? So I love this model, absolutely love this model. It was put together by World at Work, and we're going to work from left to right on this model. We're going to spend a bunch of time here because there's a lot of pretty cool stuff happening. So I want you to look all the way over here at the left, okay? Everything starts with our business strategy. And no show of hands, but how many of you know what your bank's strategy is? You really know what it's about, where it's going, and how it's going to get there. If you're sitting there saying, gosh, I don't know if I've ever seen our strategic plan. I don't even really know if I know that. That's a problem. Because how do we get our people to do it if we don't know? So one of the biggest problems I find with even starting on this line of sight journey is that maybe a couple people sitting in a boardroom somewhere have come up with a strategy and a strategic plan and all that fun stuff, and then it's brought back and it sits on a shelf and no one ever knows what's going on with it. Mistake number one. Now, there are 3 types of business strategy, and I want to talk about each of them briefly. So the first one is called product or service leadership. Now, a company that wants to focus on product or service leadership says to themselves, we are going to put the most innovative products or services on the market that money can buy. They're not going to be cheap, but they're going to be so good that people will do business with us. So what companies come to mind when you think about product or service leadership? Yeah. Apple, right? I always hear Apple. Is an Apple phone significantly different from any other phone out there? Some Apple users say, oh yeah, but really, come on. It makes phone calls, you can get texts, you can take pictures, you can take movies. I mean, it does all the same stuff, right? But Apple has created a mystique that their product and their line of products are significantly better than others. And we willingly stand in line at the mall when their new release comes out behind hundreds of people to get the latest iPhone or iPad or gadget, right? Product leadership. Got another one? A lot of times big pharma, right? We don't want to pay what we pay for drugs, but if they've got the latest whiz-bang drug that's going to cure our ailment, we will buy that drug. We expect them to be putting the best drugs on the market that money can buy, okay? So a company that is focused on product or service leadership has to educate its employees that, okay, it's not that we don't care about our customers, we're getting through to our customers with our product or our service. It's just going to be beyond everything else. Next most common style, and these aren't in any particular order, is operational excellence. So a company focused on operational excellence is one that says we are going to have our infrastructure so focused that it's going to drive value to our people. Our processes, our procedures are going to be so tight that we will be able to deliver our service or our product quickly, efficiently, and at a high value to our customers. Can you think of a company who is operationally excellent? I'm sorry? Amazon, absolutely. FedEx, UPS. Well, yeah, okay? And so, but think about the magic of Amazon. You guys could be sitting here right now, oh, I like this gadget, boom, and it shows up on your doorstep tomorrow. Like, that blows my mind, okay? And I spent a lot of my career at UPS. I know how to get something from point A to point B and what it takes. And man, Amazon has it figured out. And believe it or not, Walmart, an operationally excellent company, okay? They have a massive distribution network that allows them to move product into their stores pretty quickly and efficiently. And yes, I know they beat their vendors over the heads, and that's how they also get their prices down, okay? But think about it. You don't go there for the customer service, which is what we're going to talk about in a minute, and you don't go there because they've got, products that are any better than anyone else, right? You go there for the value. Or you don't, because no one ever admits that they shop at Walmart, but their stores are always packed, right? So they are operationally excellent. So again, if you are going to focus internally on your processes and your procedures, how do you convey that to your people so that they know that the reason for that is that's how you're going to drive the value to the customer? How do we communicate that? The third and final type of business strategy is customer intimacy. So this company says we are going to build a relationship with our customers such that they will not want to do business with anyone else. We're going to take care of them so well and treat them so awesomely, they would never even think about leaving us. And that includes if we have to charge a premium for our service. Can you think of a company that is customer intimate? This is always the hardest one. I would agree with Disney. Absolutely. Disney. Right? They're not leading things in terms of products, right? They have great service culture. Why do people spend hard-earned money to go to Disney World? You can go get on a roller coaster anywhere for a lot cheaper. You want the experience. You want the immersion of being at Disney. And you see people that go to Disney several times a year. They take honeymoons there, the whole bit, because they want to be part of that culture, that environment. Absolutely. Love Disney. Any others? Any clothing retailers come to mind? I'm sorry? Lululemon. I've heard of it. I don't know what it is, though. Workout clothes, okay? Spanx has grown amazingly. People seem to love Spanx. Back in the day, I was hearing Zappos for like shoes and online ordering. I'm not quite hearing them so much. Maybe they're falling away. I'm sorry?
Amazon took over.
Yeah, Amazon, yeah. Nordstrom, I hear, from a customer intimate standpoint in the way they...
I'd say community banks, too.
Okay, community banks, because you're not part of some big conglomerate.
You're personal, and they know that, it might not be the best rate or the best,
Mm-hmm.
there might be a fee associated, but it's that relationship.
Yeah, yeah. I know back home, I can call my branch manager. She knows me. I know her. I know the head teller. I can say, hey, I got a problem. Boom, it's fixed. I don't have to call the 800 number, right? Even though they're a mid-sized organization, I would agree. So that one's usually easier to explain to our people, like why we're so focused on the customer. But they also have to connect the dots over, well, if I'm customer-centric and I want to be intimate with my customer, what does that really mean? Last week, I was in St. Louis to speak at a conference. And plane lands, I'm standing there at baggage, and the baggage carousel was empty. And I did not have a bag. And so I go to customer service desk, and they said, well, Mr. Crow, best we can figure, your bag's still sitting in Baltimore. I said, okay. So it's 5:30 local time. I speak at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. If I don't have a bag, I got a T-shirt and shorts. I probably can't do a keynote in a T-shirt and shorts, right? Although I have spoken for this group before, they would probably think it's funny. But she says, well, you're going to have to go shopping. I said, well, is Southwest going to take care of us? Yep, you keep your receipts. So I take an Uber. I go out to local mall. And I had never shopped at a Nordstrom before. Anyone shop at Nordstrom? Okay, I've never. So I walk in. I almost felt like Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman, right? I walk in and I find the guy in the menswear section. I said, I need an outfit. He goes, oh, what are you looking for, sir? I said, well, I got to look good. I'm going to be on a stage tomorrow. I'm going to be getting filmed. I got to da-da-da-da-da. He says, tomorrow? I said, yeah, they lost my bag. And he went, oh. He says, so you need an outfit? I said, yeah, I need it all, man. Like what you see me wearing right now, that's all I got. And so shirt, pants, belt, shoes, socks, the whole bit, right? Altered while I waited. I was like, ooh, you guys now got a fan. Because he took care of me. And even while I was waiting, he said, well, you probably need toiletries and all that stuff, right? I said, yeah, absolutely. He goes, leave the mall, go right across over there, CVS. He didn't have to tell me that, but he knew what I was dealing with, so walked over to the CVS, got all my toiletry stuff. I come back, my outfit's ready. That's customer intimacy, okay? We have to know where we are with one of those three. Now, you might say, Ed, we got our toes in a couple of them. I would agree, but I guarantee you, if you sit down with your bank president, he or she will tell you, yes, this is the one we want to focus on. And if they know it and the exec team knows it, every single employee should know it and know why. And here's why they have to know that. Take a look. That business strategy is going to influence our culture and our HR strategy. How we do what we do with our people is completely informed by that business strategy. How we motivate them, how we reward them, how we hold them accountable, all of that comes back to that business strategy. I was working with a customer service phone center one time, and they were struggling to hit their goals and motivate their people. Now think about when you call an 800 number. What is the one thing you don't want to have to do when you have a problem and you call an 800 number? Okay, you don't want to sit on hold. What's another thing you don't want to have to do? Automate, you want to talk to a person. Don't want to tell your story to a bunch of different people. Same thing, right? So these are all common sense things. So they had this idea of to get customer intimate that they wanted to get to one call resolution. So I didn't have to tell my story 3 times. So when the rep answered the phone, he or she could listen to the customer and be fully authorized to resolve the issue. Great. Sounds great, right? Wouldn't we all love that as customers? Here's the problem. They were rewarding their customer service telephone reps on how many calls they take in an hour. Does that make any sense in the world? Sounds really efficient. So, oh, hey, I'm going to reward you the more calls you take. But wait a minute, then I'm going to hurry to get you off the phone. They were competing, right? It didn't mesh with what their strategy was. And so how we reward our people, which is everything in this center circle here, right? Those 5 things are all the buttons that we know how to push to motivate and manage our people. They have to be informed by that business strategy. That's why, again, I love this model because you can see it surrounds it, okay? We get those 5 things right. We get the attract, motivate, retain. But here's where we're heading today, okay? This idea of employee satisfaction, notice that we're in a continuous line. Until we get to here, we got a bridge, all right? This little bridge right here, that's line of sight. If we fill that bridge in, now we get from satisfied, engaged employees to employees that drive business results. So don't underestimate the power of what this idea of communicating line of sight and having people truly understand how what they do matters and how what they do impacts the rest of the organization down the line. So, line of sight, 4-step process. Okay, sounds kind of easy. It's going to be a little bit challenging for us depending on where you're at in your cultural journey as an organization, depending on the size of your organization as well. All of these things are going to be challenges for you, all right? So, step number 1, what is your core message? And that has to be related to that business strategy. So, do your people know what your strategy is, why it is, and what their role in implementing that strategy is? Now, you heard me mention this morning about this insurance company that I'm working with right now, that it's having communication problems. And what's happening is that the president is having regular town hall meetings, but the things that he's talking about and the button words he's using are not resonating with folks further down the line. And so what we're in the process of doing is giving people a say in what they need to hear and how they need to hear it. That's the importance of the core message. I was working with an organization a few years ago, and again, similar issue, communication challenges. And in one of the focus groups, employees said, Ed, let's take a field trip. Let's go. We left the little boardroom we were in. We went down to the employee lunchroom. And on the lunchroom wall, there was a huge bulletin board of all kinds of stuff for employees, all kinds of information. And he said, what do you see? And I'm like, well, I see stuff about benefits and EAP and all these things. It was almost like communication overload, really. And he says, no, get a little bit closer. And I saw company financials. This company was a German company, or German-owned, I should say, okay? And I guarantee you have their products in your home. Guarantee it. So they're a U.S. company now owned by Germans, okay? And I started looking at the financials on the wall. All of them were in euros. Now, I don't know about you guys. I don't know what the going rate, exchange rate is. So if we were up €1 million, inherently, I know that's good, but what does it really mean to me, right? What did I do to contribute to us being up €1 million, right? It's little things like that that are the downfall of many organizations, because I would bet even the executive team didn't know the exchange rate, right? So who was sitting there with that Excel spreadsheet that couldn't just put a conversion factor in there when they printed everything out for the employees to hear? And when the plant manager got up, she would talk in terms of euros, every single financial indice, even though she was a local U.S. patriot. She was not a German brought in to run that plant. Doesn't make sense, right? And you might be sitting there saying, well, gosh, Ed, we would never do something as stupid as that. This is a Fortune 500 company doing this, making that mistake. So are there lingo words that you use? Are there acronyms that you use that maybe those part-time frontline employees don't know? And they're saying, I don't know what it is, but I'll feel dumb if I ask. Okay? So think about what's the understanding. How do we get employees? And that might mean that we need to create multiple messages. And we hate that in business for some reason because all we're ever told is, well, everyone's got to hear the same thing. No, they don't. They need to hear what they need to hear in order to be effective for you. Which means maybe your tellers need to hear something one way, but your branch managers need to do it another way, and your commercial loan reps yet another way. Because of what their circle of influence in your organization is. Okay? And so I like to give employees a voice. How do you need to hear what you need to hear? How is it that we can communicate better with you? When I do work with organizations on communication, one of the things that we talk about is the biggest barrier to effective communication is our sphere of experience. What we bring to the table, not only personally but professionally, gets in the way of good communication. And so when we think about that, we have to ask the other person, what's your experience and how can I communicate with you in a way that relates to your experience here at our bank? That's huge. It's more work on our part, absolutely, if we're the message crafters. But we're getting the results that we want, which is what we really need, right? Now, we get that core message developed. Next thing we have to do, I know, I want to make a statement on company-wide rollouts. They don't work, okay? I've seen way too many companies doing town hall meetings where they bring every employee together and the CEO gets up there and talks. Okay, those are wonderful events. Don't get me wrong. But if we think that everyone's hearing the same message because the same words are being spoken, we're kidding ourselves. All right? So my recommendation is have your town hall meetings. Get that CEO president up there talking. Absolutely, it's wonderful. But have it followed up with departmental meetings, team-based meetings, branch meetings, to talk about what that message now means for that team. That's how you go backwards through the chain of getting it from the company's point of view down to that team-based and individual employee point of view. That's really where the magic is for the employee to make that connection. Okay? Now, second step, what is leadership's role in all this? They got to walk the talk. It's that simple. If we're going to say that an employee needs to care about one-call resolution, well then doggone it, don't put an incentive plan in place that rewards, me doing 100 calls an hour. It doesn't make sense. A very close friend of mine is in banking. And a couple years ago, he was in a situation that he really didn't care for. He was a branch manager. And corporate was giving him his goals. How many deposits, how many new loans, how many credit cards, all those things, right? You guys know all these indices. Here's the problem. Where his branch was located, 90% of the customers of that branch did not own their home. Now, one might think, oh, well, then that's ripe for mortgages. Well, they didn't own their home because it was an economically depressed area, all right? So he was being held accountable to open up X amount of mortgages when the bulk of the base of that branch wasn't going to qualify for a mortgage. He was being held accountable to open so many lines of credit. Well, these people don't own a home. In many cases, they didn't have much in the way of savings. What line of credit are we going to extend to them? Oh, we'll write them credit cards. Their credit's in the toilet. We can't offer. So all these indices he's being hit with, he can't manage because corporate really didn't care about the demographic of that particular branch. That's a problem. You talk about disengaging your people. Okay, obviously he's no longer there. Okay. So are we doing those kind of things, again, that sort of corporate rollout where we're saying this is just how we do it. So if it's good for one branch, it's good for another branch. No, probably not. Okay? So how do we modify that based upon the experiences of the people that we're trying to motivate and get results from? That's the biggest question. Okay? And so when I look at leadership's role, I look at the vision. Do they communicate the vision and can they bring it to life? And what does that really mean? So, if I have a CEO who doesn't care about his or her employees, and it's obvious that they don't, it's kind of hard to get those employees to care about a customer when they don't feel cared for. That's the biggest challenge. Okay, so if management is not walking the talk, the whole process stops right here. So you often hear that, what is it, do as I say, not as I do? Doesn't work here. Employees see right through it, and our process stops here. And it's a shame. Because once we've got them with an understanding, and all they need to see is that leadership is exhibiting the right behaviors. No, leadership's doing this too. I said how I was at UPS for a little while, and you're not supposed to be on a moving conveyor belt. Boxes belong on conveyor belts, people do not. But back in the old days, a lot of times operations management would get on the conveyor belt because they could get from one end of the building to the other really fast, and along the way they're, you do this, you do this, you do this, right? And so they'd be cruising along. But yet if an employee got on it, the employee would get fired. And so it was a huge disconnect. What it took was for us to get a new district manager in, and the first time he heard about it, going to you, you're out. What do you mean? You stepped on, you're out. Made an example of a couple of management people. Now all of a sudden it was, oh, this is serious. Can't do as I say, not as I do anymore. Okay? But it changed the culture of the operation in our district. Third thing, got to blend the two. We've got the message, we've got management walking the talk, right? Those two now have to come together. If we are going to create an environment where everyone understands their role, then we have to have some level of trust. We talked about that this morning, right? That trust is everything. So if I'm seeing things that aren't working, I've got to be able and willing to sit down with you as my supervisor and say, hey, this isn't working. Can we talk about this? And what's the last thing I want to hear if I come to you with that? Okay, don't want to be dismissed, absolutely. Yep, what else? This is the way we do it. It's corporate's policy. Done, process stops right now, right? So there has to be some collaboration at this point. And this is where things start at a team level, okay? So our branch managers have to be really good with their team, and so on up the chain. They've got to be willing to listen to those tellers. I did some work with a small credit union back home, and we did exactly that. They had a brand new CEO come in. She had been the CFO and was a strong technical leader. Obviously, she knew financials inside and out. She wasn't a good people leader. But we talked this morning about positional leadership. The team was willing to give her some window, and the board asked me to work with her. So sure, we did some one-on-one coaching over the course of several months, but one of the things as part of that coaching that I asked her to do is I want you sitting down with every teller. I want you sitting down with every person, from the part-time IT guy to this, to this, to this, and find out what they really want. And through that, they knew that they could be heard because her demeanor, nice lady, but her demeanor, she was very CFO-ish, if you know what I mean, right? She was very technical, very much just numbers, and while she cared about her people, it didn't come across that way. But by doing that, oh my gosh, the floodgates opened up when it came to, they wanted to expand, they wanted to build a new main office, they wanted to get into some of the public entities like the courthouse and that sort of thing to better serve those members. And employees came up with some amazing ideas for her. And to her credit then, she said, okay, go make it happen. Like, I don't need to lead this. You had the idea. Go make it happen. I'll support you. Today, they're growing like mad. And they were on the brink of being put out of business because of some internal issues with the previous CEO and the previous commercial lender doing some hinky stuff with loans and whatever else. So they went from this close to being shut down by the feds to now they're back to growing again, all because of the right leadership, all right? And so it has to be that interactive approach. Employees have to feel rewarded and empowered, all those things, right, and they got to feel like they're trusted in order to open up. So that interactive approach is absolutely key. So I'd say if you hear something today and you're like, gosh, I really think I want to do this, we mentioned it this morning, go talk to your people. Find out what their thoughts, their ideas. How can we get this implemented? What do you want to see around here? Knowing that we can't do everything they want, but we can do a lot of what they want, okay? Now, final step, how do we measure success? So, is the right measure of success the number of accounts we have, the average deposit amount in those accounts, the average loan amount, I don't know, whatever it happens to be, right? What are your key indices? The question is, are they the right indices? And if they are, can the people relate to those indices? Okay? So does a teller understand why they're being asked to offer the latest, greatest credit card? Like, what does that do for the bank? Okay? Do they understand why they want to give a brochure about why HELOC rates are so great? Instead of saying, hey, give this out, let people know we got great rates. Do we educate them on why this is so important for the bank to underwrite these kind of loans? Okay? That little bit of education, I'm not talking about having to pull people into a session like this and have an all-day thing, but do we just sit down with our team in a brief team meeting and explain, hey, this is going to be one of our initiatives, and here's why it's an initiative. Here's what it's so important. And then here's how I'm going to reward you for doing that. Okay? If we want our people to focus for us on, again, just use an example, HELOCs, okay, well, what's in it for them to focus on that? It doesn't have to be monetary, but what's in it for them? What kind of contest? How can you gamify that from an internal standpoint so that people are thinking of it top of mind for your customers? And then are they trained in such a way that they can offer it without seeming like a pushy salesperson, right? Those are all things that we need to be thinking about when we get to measuring our success. Now, what I want you to make sure of is that the managers are also held accountable, right? So if we're asking tellers to hand out information, let's say, what's the branch manager's role, or what's the head teller's role in all of this? Do they have accountability pieces in play? So if I want my average teller to have 3 discussions a day about the advantages of getting a HELOC with your institution, well, what does that translate into for the branch manager? How many discussions a day should be happening? Okay? So they should be reliant on one another. A branch manager shouldn't be held accountable for things that the tellers aren't being held accountable for, because the tellers are what's going to make the magic in that branch, along with any commercial lenders or whoever else you have maybe reporting through that branch manager. Okay? So please, please, please take a picture, write this down. No Jelly of the Month Club. Okay? My favorite scene in all of Christmas Vacation is Clark getting his Jelly of the Month Club certificate, right? What I mean by this is, hopefully you are not in a situation where you've tried something and your bank has a history of saying after a couple months, well, this ain't working, let's go try something else over here. Well, that's not working either, let's try something else over here. What happens when you get into that mode? I'm sorry? Okay, no consistency. What happens? Loses value. What happens to your people? Discouraged. They don't get into it because they know, it's going to pass anyway, right? So why should I even bother learning about this or caring, because they're just going to change pace, 3-4 months down the road. So give things a time to play out. Now, we get into like current events with the COVID situation all summer, like, whoa, okay, we've got to make a move. We've got to do something a little bit different. I get that. But otherwise, give things time to play out and just see what's happening, okay? And if it's not working, then we tweak, but we explain why we're tweaking so that folks understand why it wasn't working and why the need to move somewhere different now. Otherwise, you become Jelly of the Month Club, and people just sit back and say, thank you for my jar of jelly. Off we go. I'll get my next flavor next month. That's really what it comes down to. Now, at the end of those 4 steps, and people always ask me, well, Ed, how long does it take? I don't know. Depends on your company. Depends on the level of trust. Depends on where you're at in your cultural journey. There's lots of moving factors here, okay? But once it's done, the hard work isn't over. You've got everyone fired up, everyone's focused, everyone's moving forward. Now it's how do we keep them motivated? Attract, motivate, and retain, right? How do we motivate our people? That's the biggest question. You've got to know what your people want. I always hear, and I look at it this way. Look, this is simple. We hire someone over here, right? And we say, bring your time, talent, and desire to my company. And if you bring those three things, I'm going to give you a great culture, a fair wage, and a great, performance system, good benefit package, whatever, right? And as long as these things are in balance, everything's wonderful. Now, as we were getting set up in here today, the AV guy was saying how, of course, they're short-staffed like everybody else, right? But when they first had to lay people off here, he's like, I started doing 3 people's jobs. All of a sudden, what was being expected of him went way up. Did anything happen over here? I don't know. Didn't ask him, not my business. But my gut tells me, probably not. And we wonder why people get frustrated, right? When we offer them something, and as the employment process goes along, if these things get out of whack in one way or the other, we've got problems, okay? And so when we look at this, to me, this is the exchange relationship. This is as simple as it gets right here. If we don't constantly keep that reward in balance with what we're asking someone to do, forget it. There comes disengagement, there comes the checkout, and today's marketplace where someone's going to hop for 10 cents an hour, right? They're gone. They're going down the street to another institution. And they're going to take their 10, 25 cents an hour or whatever. All right? Who's responsible for this guy with his head on the table? Ah, himself. Manager. I used this slide with a group of business owners. And I remember there was a guy, he was sitting like right here, and he got mad at this. He goes, I'd fire that guy. I said, well, I don't disagree. But whose fault is it? Well, I want self-starters, and I want this, and I want. I said, okay, yeah, I got it. It's great. I said, but whose fault? When you hired him, was he a self-starter? Was he fired up? Was he, well, yeah. I said, well, then why is it his fault now that he's not fired up? I got silence, right? When this happens, 9 times out of 10, it's our fault as managers and supervisors. It's our fault. We did something to kill the flame. The 1 time out of 10 where it's their fault is the 1 time out of 10 where they smoked us in the interview. They weren't really the person they said they were, and we probably knew that a week or 2 in. But if they were a good employee for a while and then all of a sudden this happens, that's on us, on our culture, on our management style, our leadership. Okay? We have to own that we've killed that fire. All right? And so what we want to do, and I'm just going to flash these stats real quick. You know these stats. In fact, some of these I'm waiting for some now COVID updates because they're worse. Okay? We know people are disengaged right now. We know people are looking to hop and leave. Some of them are, when I think about the shortfall of the American workforce, a lot of it is in frontline manual labor type jobs. But there's a lot of evidence to indicate that those of us in management are just waiting till things settle down and we're out. We're going to move somewhere. Okay? You guys know these stats. I want you to take a look at this list. Let's play a little game here. These things, I think there's 8, 9 of them up here, are the things that we would commonly use to motivate our people. I want you to pick the 3 you think are the most important and jot them down. What are the 3 most important things on this list that you can do to motivate and engage your people? Go ahead and jot them down. Now, there's a study done, several hundred companies, thousands of employees were asked this question, or management people were asked this question. Here's what they said. The average management person rated them this way. How many of you have at least one of the same top 3? Show of hands. Anybody got 2 of them? 2 of the top 3. Anyone get the trifecta? No? Okay. There's no right or wrong answer here. It's just what management said, that we believe this is what our employees say, motivation, okay? Now, same set of companies, tens of thousands of employees asked the very same question, here's what they said. Now, I'm sorry? Yeah. Now, it's funny. I've had like tomatoes thrown at me over this slide. Where did you get this? We've always been told it's the their benefits. Are you kidding? Look, it's just one study, right? What's the moral of this story? It's a huge discount. Same companies. Management has no clue what employees want in these companies, right? So if you don't ask your people what they want to be motivated with, how can we motivate them? And I always hear that, well, Ed, our people aren't motivated by money. That's garbage. We all got to put clothes on our back, food on our table, and a roof over our head. Okay? We all are motivated to a certain extent by money, and it's okay to admit that. Okay? It is not the end-all, be-all. Absolutely not. But at a base level, look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? We've got to be able to meet the basic needs of our people. But what this is saying in this particular study, that all those ancillary benefits in the comp were way up there and the earning potential was way up there. Then they worried about all the other fluffy stuff that we think is so important all the time. Okay? And yes, if we satisfy those basic needs, those are going to become much more important. How I get along with my manager and the culture and all those things. Absolutely. Okay? This is scary to me. A study was done on 11 separate studies of what it takes to change a person's behavior. And it takes a 7% raise to change someone's behavior. Is that scary to you? When's the last time you got 7% raise? Right? We get 2 or 3%, and we're happy for that. But come on, you guys are bankers, right? You know the math. If you earn $50,000 a year and I give you a 2% raise, what's your raise? What's 2% of 50,000? How much?
We're bankers, we use calculators. Yeah.
Oh, well, use your calculator. That's okay. Go for it.
Out loud, so everybody's thinking it. Times, what is it? $1,000.
$1,000, right? Do you get $1,000? Why not? Taxes, right? So take 30% off of that. You got $700. Now, do you get that $700 all at once? Nope. Over 26 weeks. Now, I don't know what that math is, but it equates to pepperoni on your pizza. Honestly, think about it, right? So we give someone 2%, and we say, be happy for your 2%, and oh, by the way, I'm going to stretch your goals out next year. Because you hit those goals this year and you got your 2%, I'm going to stretch you even further. And then we wonder why sooner or later people burn out or they stop producing. Now, I am not advocating 7% raises, okay? Yes, it would be wonderful. I get there are budgetary concerns. My point in sharing this with you is to understand what it takes to change someone's behavior from a financial perspective is probably out of our budget, okay? Unless we use our budget monies differently. Now,
But what makes up that 7%? Is it on their paycheck? Or is it on their, I mean,
merit increasing. Yeah.
you can do your paycheck, but then what else are you giving them from a
Exactly.
reward or a
Yep.
morale standpoint to make up that?
Exactly. Now, here's one thing you can do, and I just want you to think differently about that merit increase. Let's take that same 2% increase on a $50,000 employee. It's still $1,000. We take the tax out, it's still $700. But what if I went and said, here's your bonus this year. It's $700. And she says, oh, well, thank you. And maybe she goes shopping. Maybe she gets a big screen TV for the family room. Maybe she takes a mini vacation. I don't know, right? There are some studies that would indicate that every time she thinks about that vacation, or every time she turns on the TV, my bonus did that. Oh, my bonus did that. And it's that little hit, that little hit. Now, what's the beauty of doing it that way versus giving her a 2% merit increase? Because remember, I just gave it to her as a bonus, not a merit increase.
The emotional connection.
Emotional connection. Selfishly, what does it do for us? I'm sorry? She got it all at one time. What does it do for us as a company? Saves us a ton of money, gang. Right? because next year, has her salary gone up? No, I gave her a 2% bonus, okay? Now, again, I'm not advocating that you do this all the time. People deserve merit increases. They deserve to see their salary increase. All I'm asking you to think about is looking at the pot of money that you have to develop your people and motivate your people, how are you using the pot of money? Is it getting you the return that you want it to get for you? I was helping a large retirement community out with this exact problem. And every year, they had a huge company party in the summertime. Now, before they really grew massively, they used to have a big pig roast right on company grounds. As they grew and grew and grew, they just outgrew it. You know, a couple thousand employees couldn't do it. So they went to our local amusement park. And of course, it was just like burgers and dogs, but people got in and, you know, a whole bit. Well, that gets kind of expensive. They were spending about $40,000 on this company event. So big money, right? And so it got to the point they were asking people, hey, you know, would you pay $5 like for your space? You're free. And we'll even cover the kids, but like if your spouse wants to come or whatever, could you pay $5? People went up in arms about this, right? $5 to go to the amusement park for free. Or not for free, but for $5, right? And I said, what percentage of your people go to the amusement park? They said, about 60%. I said, okay, you're spending $40,000 to, quote, motivate 60% of your people. Half of them are complaining because you're now charging them $5 for their family to go. Meanwhile, they would also give everyone on their birthday a $10 gift certificate to go to the local bake shop, which was phenomenal, to get a cake. And they could have anything they wanted on that cake. Happy anniversary, happy birthday, could be designed anyway, any flavors, the whole bit, $10. 99% of their certificates got used every year. What are the people telling you? Right? They were spending about 10 grand on that process. And I looked at them and said, get rid of the company. Oh my gosh, you would have thought I told them to like kill the fatted calf or something. I mean, it was insane. All I was trying to get these guys to see was look at what you're spending your money on and it's not having its impact. Your people are clearly telling you what's important. And so if we go back to that circle of our total rewards, our benefits, our comp, and our learning and development, all of those things, what's the total nut that we have allotted for our people? And look at that and say, okay, what do my people want out of that bucket of money? And am I using it properly? Or am I having the company picnic because, fill in the blank, we've always had a company picnic. So what? Right? Okay. So ultimately, as we're wrapping up here, if you're going to go down the variable pay road, you have to make sure it's going to improve performance. And I would say beyond variable pay, whatever you're spending money related to your people, it has to result in improved performance for them and for the company. If not, get rid of it, move that money somewhere else. Okay? It's a concept that a lot of people struggle with. And one of the things that I try, I'm on a mission. We talked about influence this morning. One of the things I'm trying to influence is to get rid of across-the-board increases. They don't work. They're not fair. They're demoralizing. Everyone says, oh, no, everyone gets 3%. Everyone's happy about it. No, they're not. Because they know who the slackers are, who are getting 3% when they worked hard, and they're still getting 3%. It's not fair. In fact, it's the opposite of not fair, okay? Or it's the opposite of fair, I should say. It's not fair at all, okay? I'm on a mission to get that out of companies. Doesn't work. People say, what about COLA? Oh my gosh, I can't stand COLA, okay? If people are getting more money in their pocket, whether through raises, benefits, ancillary things, it should be connected to performance and the expectation. Remember the balance, right? If we're raising our side, they got to raise theirs. If we keep giving, and we're not getting the production, something is seriously wrong, right? Okay. Ultimately, and you guys will get these slides, so I put a little more content on here than I normally would because I want you to have a blueprint for when you go back. But make sure if you're looking at pay, variable or otherwise, that it does those four things, okay? Make sure that especially it comes back to that last one, driving positive reinforcement. That when people get the bonus, get the raise, get the day off, go to the amusement park, whatever it is, that there's a positive reinforcer there, that you have got a return on your investment. Just like when you invest in a new branch or new technology, finance wants to know what the return on that investment is. You should want to know what the return on your dollar investment is. The final thing I want to mention, and again, this is something else that you can take a look at, but there's a dark side to all of this, okay? You can incent the wrong behaviors. We saw it with the mortgage crisis in '08, right? Wrong behaviors, writing loans that had no business being written. Be careful what you set your sights on and how you set your sights on those things. Make sure that the behaviors that you're reinforcing support the business strategy, whatever that may be. And so when I look at this, and I look at how, and these are just sample numbers up here, your incentive plan has to go back to that person's contribution, okay? And so obviously up at the C level, they're impacting the entire company. Make sure whatever your C level's getting are impacting the entire company and so on. The percentages, you can play with those. Those are just up there for messing around with, okay? So your homework from this session, ask your people what's going to motivate them. Give them that list. Those 8 items. Do it as a survey monkey. Ask them to rank them. Ask your management team to rank them. And start to do some analysis there. Secondly, take a look at your total people budget and where you're allotting the monies. And are you getting the bang for your buck that you need out of that money allotment? If not, it's time to have a chat about where that money needs to go. Strategic HR is all about driving our bottom line results. If we want to be strategic, we've got to drive bottom line results. And one of the biggest challenges to HR being strategic is HR. We get caught up in a lot of the tactical things throughout the course of the day, the month, the year, and we forget to step back and look at the bigger picture. If you want to be a true HR leader, step back, take a look at the bigger picture, and be strategic. Thank you.